3 up, 2 across, tap that play button 3 times, and walk through the archway into Dialogue Alley. Hello and welcome to the show. Dialogue Alley is mostly about Harry Potter books, book translations, and all other things magical. I am Erik, and with me is Carly. Hi, Carly.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm ready for episode 2 of Dialogue Alley.
Me too.
Yeah, and the fact that we're recording episode 2 means that the episode 1 not only it was only the season premiere, it was not also the season finale.
Right.
We're moving on to more content for you to enjoy. But welcome to the show. We're glad to have you with us. We have some cool things in store today. But first, let's remind everyone who we are. Who are you?
I am Carly with all the pretty books. I'm a Harry Potter book collector since about 2009 or so, 2008, somewhere in there. And I've got about 1,200 books in my collection of Harry Potter translations and rare and signed Harry Potter books.
That is outstanding. You could take 1,200 and subtract about 1,000, and you got about as many books as I have. I'm Erik. I also collect Harry Potter books. I mostly do translations of book 1, which, just a quick recap, obviously a translation is the book in English translated to another language. So, for instance, you can buy Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in Italian, or French, or German, or Bengali.
Or Faroese.
Or Faroese. Wow, how do we both say that?
There we go.
That's insane. Of all the 90, so we picked the same one at the same time. Outstanding. So that's my collection. But Carly, you have some big news because you're moving all 1,200 or so of your books currently.
I am moving all of my books. I'm moving my books from my other place to my new place, and then the bookshelves, and then I'm moving out of my storage units in another town that is about 4 hours away each way, and it's just a lot. That's why I've not been very active on my social medias, is because I'm still working full-time, actually more than full-time, and moving.
And there's a pandemic.
Right.
A global pandemic. No, moving with books, I don't have as many books as you, but when we moved recently this past fall, moving is hard in general, let alone moving a lot of heavy books in a lot of small boxes, because you need to put them in small boxes, as we learned, because big boxes
can damage them.
Are too heavy.
And heavy, and you don't want to, like, some of my rare things have to be moved, pretty individually so they don't get damaged. Makes sense.
We did that for a few of our more valuable items as well, kind of outside any box, and just kind of hand carried it to places. So we know how that is. And on my book front, I still haven't received my Maori translation. That is the most recent translation.
You're going to have to give an update every week until it comes.
I will. So the Maori translation, it's an indigenous language from New Zealand. It is the newest of the authorized translations of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So I was hoping that it shipped in November. So
it should be here.
It should be here. And I know for some of you listening that collect translations, I know a lot of you have received it, but I've also heard from a few collectors that they have also not received their copy. So misery loves company. I'm optimistic that it will still show up.
Yeah, send us an email if you're still waiting at dialoguealleypodcast@gmail.com. We're curious.
Yeah, and we can send you sympathy vibes of your missing book as well. So today on Dialogue Alley, episode 2, we are going to go through some news. Our main segment tonight, we are going to talk about Harry Potter books that maybe you have, and we're going to learn a little bit more about them. We're going to learn about, are they rare and valuable? How do you find out if you have a first edition or a first print? And just a little more info to kind of get you more educated on the books that you own. And
maybe want to collect.
Yeah. And who doesn't want to be more educated?
Exactly. Coming from two people who I used to be a teacher, you are a teacher, so we are big fans of education.
Oh, yes. Plus, you can really impress your friends because some of these hot tips are going to give you kind of work for any book printed in the United States, so you can dazzle your friends with your knowledge of the copyright page.
Yes, any Harry Potter book in the United States.
True. So we also are going to have a translation of the show, which I think we should keep it a surprise.
Yes, we will.
Okay. So we have a translation of the show, and as always, we will have a time for questions at the end. And we did receive some questions this week, so we can answer some listener mail today, which is exciting.
Very.
Yes. So, with that being said, let's get right into it with some Harry Potter book news.
Yes.
So, we have two big items this week being towards the end of January, and there are some new Italian books, Carly. Did you know this?
I did. There are new Italian cover art. The Italian translations of Harry Potter are very well known, and at least in the collector community, for having unique cover art, which most of them certainly do. Sometimes they'll use covers from the UK or US books, but they also have their own unique covers as well. And there's a bunch of them. There's a lot of Italian books, and they're all pretty fabulous. And they have these new covers coming out on the 25th of February. You can buy the box set for about €130, and I'll put the link on my website page for the podcast. Should you wish to, I don't know if you can pre-order them, but you can buy them, I guess, through that link.
I think so. I haven't tried. I'm not particularly interested in them. Art is subjective. Some people probably will look at these and go, oh my gosh, where have you been all my life? New Italian editions with new art. I think they're fine. They're very interesting.
They're fine.
That's
fine.
My northern United States way of saying, yeah, I don't care for them, but you might. They're cool. They're different. Anything that is exclusive to a specific language or country in terms of art is always exciting for me. However, I already have unique cover art from Italy. I don't know if I need more, and it doesn't do enough to wow me. Unlike those Lithuanian books we talked about last show.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Which those are just spectacular.
They're beautiful. And I'm on the fence about the new Italians as well. Just they're very different than what I'm used to seeing, which is nice. Difference is fine, but these look a little bit more like something out of Star Wars, maybe. I'm not a big Star Wars fanatic like a lot of people I know. And they're very different renderings of some of our favorite moments. And then some of the, like especially book 5, I don't know what they're depicting on the cover.
Yeah, I've had a few people reach out to me and ask me what I thought was going on. And,
Me
and
too.
after I shared what I thought was going on, they said, oh, well, that's not what I thought it was. I thought it was this. And I'm like, well, it could be, I suppose. So anyway, we'll get pictures of those up for you on Carly's website, as well as our new Instagram page for the show, which is Dialogue Alley Podcast on Instagram.
Yes.
So that will be a good new place where we can post updates about the show. We can post show notes in terms of pictures of books that we discussed, so you can easily find that to reference while you're listening. So that will be up there. And then the other news, which I'm more excited about personally, is that Bloomsbury, which is the original publisher of the Harry Potter books in the United Kingdom, is coming out with book 6, Half-Blood Prince, in their House Edition series, which has been going on for a few years now.
Since 2017, yeah. So the House Editions kicked off in 2017 with the publication of Philosopher's Stone, celebrating 20 years of Harry Potter. And so what they did was they published books featuring...
Like the books from each of the 4 houses, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, Slytherin, they each have their own exclusive edition of a book. The text block is exactly the same, which means the story is the same. The only difference is... But
there's a little bit more information about like the founders or history of the houses,
yeah, or someone that was in the house. Like one of the Slytherin ones has something about Merlin in it, I think, and one of the... and they talk about the ghosts of all the houses in each of the books. So they have a couple exclusive pages to those. I think they're also information taken from Pottermore, so it's not... you don't need the book, but it's kind of cool.
And the hardcovers have like the Slytherin scarf down the side edge or the Gryffindor scarf down the side edge. So, I mean, they're really pretty. They have like the Slytherin hardcover has sprayed green edges, as does the softcover. They're available in both hard and soft covers. So naturally, I had to buy all 8 of book 1, and I've got all 8 of all of the others because I I'm a crazy person.
Which I think we both ran into that issue when they first came out with Philosopher's Stone. Hard and soft covers, in this case, are different. So, for example, the Gryffindor hardcover book is like dark black with red accents, but the softcover book of Philosopher's Stone Gryffindor edition is bright red with black accents.
Right, and then you get to Chamber of Secrets and they reversed it. So the hardcover is red with black accents, and then the softcover is black with like red sprayed edges and accents on the cover. And those books, the softcover Chamber of Secrets books, are sharp.
Yeah, they are. And so what we're going through all these, the reason is because when naive Erik, which is me, first saw these books come out and said, wow, I can get 4 different colored books. They're going to look so cool next to each other. And you know what? They sure did.
I know. I did the same. I was like, I imagined all of the like photo opportunities with all of them.
I just thought they're all so different looking because they're just really eye-catching, especially just on the shelf looking at the spine. But I decided early on that I was only going to get the hardcover ones, not the softcover ones as well. But then, foolish me thinking like, wow, this is going to be great. Can't wait for the next one. Well, Philosopher's Stone and Goblet of Fire are a much different thickness and they take up a lot more space when you acquire more of these. So I was a little short-sighted in thinking through this plan and finally realizing how much space this is going to take up on a shelf to get them all. But I'm kind of committed at this point, at least to get all 4 houses in hardcover.
Well, when I bought Philosopher's Stone, I bought all 8. So 4 softcover, 4 hardcover. And I didn't think that they were going to do the other 6 books. I don't know why. And it never occurred to me that a space issue is like, it's 8 books. I can swing 8 books on my shelves. And now it's 8 times 7. And that just becomes a lot bigger.
It sure does, and a lot more expensive too.
Yeah.
when you're buying these books. But anyway, so if you are interested in these, they're great. Unfortunately, there aren't any actual bookstores in the United States that sells them outright. You have to get them from Bloomsbury or from the web. And I usually buy mine on Amazon US through a third-party seller when the price is right. But if you are looking, you can have a friend from the United Kingdom send them to you, or Carly, you know a couple other good places to get these.
Yeah, and I'll put the link on my website. You can look at Book Depository. They'll have them, as well as Amazon.co.uk. They'll have them. You cannot buy them off Bloomsbury if you're not in the United Kingdom. So that's kind of a bummer.
It is, especially when there are so many other ways to get them. I don't know why you can't just buy them directly from Bloomsbury, but they're not hard to get and they're not expensive. They're the price of a new book. And a lot of places that are selling them will offer free shipping. So I think they're around $20 to $30.
Yeah, they're not bad.
No, so they're fine.
And they're often on sale just because they print so many of them and the demand is so high that you can usually find them for pretty deep discounts, especially on Amazon or even Book Depository.
Sure. So check those out. Those are actually, they're really... Well, I like all of the books, but they're very cool. They're very cool to have, especially if you don't want to collect a ton of Harry Potter stuff. If you're a mad Hufflepuff fan, you're like, man, I need all the Hufflepuff gear. They're really cool.
Get the Hufflepuff books.
Get the Hufflepuff books and put them on the shelf.
You can get just the hard and soft cover Hufflepuff books. That's far less than 8. Or even just your favorite between the two and make a really cool display.
Yeah, or even just your favorite one book because they're cool.
That too.
That too. Really do whatever you want. It's your collection at your house.
Exactly.
Yes. So I think with your collection, your house, that should bring us easily into our main segment.
So today we decided that we would tackle very early on first edition and first print and some things along like collecting Harry Potter books. 1, because we're both asked quite a bit about them and about value of them. And 2, because I watch eBay quite a bit, and I watch eBay sold listings quite a bit, and I get really tired of watching people spend their hard-earned money on a book that's not worth it simply because they don't know enough, or a seller who is thinking that they're selling something that's worth $1,000 when it's a $5 book. That gets old.
Right, and this, if you collect anything, not even Harry Potter books, you obviously want to know as much about what you're collecting before you start spending money on it. You don't want to get something that you either don't need or is worth far less than what you're paying for it. You want to make sure that you're getting a fair price with anything that you're buying when it comes to collecting.
And I've always said with Harry Potter stuff, and really with any collecting item, regardless of what it is. You want to know what it is that you're buying before you buy.
Yeah, very true.
So that's kind of why we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
We are indeed. So, Carly, I have a question for you.
I have an answer.
Do you have any Harry Potter books at your house?
I have so many.
Do any of those Harry Potter books happen to be from the United States of America?
They are, so many of them.
Do you also live in the United States of America?
I do.
Well, that would explain it, wouldn't it? Because I do as well. And my first books that I acquired were from the United States of America, published by Scholastic.
Same.
So I think when we're talking about our books today, we're going to use the American editions of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone kind of as our ground.
Right. So we can talk about the Bloomsbury first editions, first prints later. I think that's a separate segment, actually. Especially when we're discussing value, because it's wildly different.
Sure. And I think we're both American. I feel like a lot of our listeners are either in the United States or have
knowledge of,
or even have one of the American editions of the book. So if you're listening and you have an American edition of the book,
grab your copy. Grab
your copy and follow along on this journey that is surely to knock your socks off and make your brain a little bigger so you can impress your friends with your newfound book knowledge. So, Carly, I think we should start with something very basic that sounds maybe obvious, but I think we need to mention the difference between the hardcover books and the softcover books, because...
Right, and I think that's important because I've seen so many listings on eBay that, it's a hardcover when it's actually a softcover.
Right, so get ready for some hot knowledge here. Hardcover books are hard. If you feel the outside of your book and you open up just the front part, the cover, and it's hard like thick cardboard, you probably have a hardcover book. But something to note with hardcover books is most of them, in fact, all of the Harry Potter books in the United States that we will be referencing right now, come with a book jacket. So that is the paper flap that goes over the top. And that is important to know also when you're looking at what something is.
And what something is valued at. Because the jacket for some of the Harry Potter books adds a lot of value. And if you don't have a jacket for that specific book, value can go way down.
Exactly. So another word that we're going to be throwing around here is if you take the jacket off on the inside flap, there should be a price usually inside there, which if you've bought any hardcover book in the United States ever, there usually is a price right there at the top of the inside flap. But there's also the actual hardcover of the book. Now, that is sometimes blank. Sometimes there's colors on there. That is the boards section of a book.
Yes. So when I talk about the boards, we're talking about that.
Yes. And that's really it. That's all the farther we're going to go into the biology of the hardcover book.
Right.
But it is hard.
And then the spine is the left side of the book where the book is bound.
Correct. Good idea throwing that in there. The opposite, but fine friend of the hardcover book is the softcover book, which is in fact the same book on the inside, but the outside doesn't have a dust jacket. The cover is just a thicker piece of paper. You can bend it pretty easily. There isn't normally a dust jacket, especially...
There's not for these books.
There's not for these ones we're talking about. I have seen some softcover books that come with dust jackets, but we will not be talking about them
I have several, actually, but we're not talking about them today.
No. In the softcover books, when you open them up, there's no colorful boards or anything. So that's the main difference. They're also slightly smaller, and they're not as durable.
But they're easier to carry, and they're lighter weight, and they're usually, in this case, much cheaper.
They sure are. And I think when it comes to value, I want to throw this out really quick. When we're talking about parts of a hardcover book, having the jacket in terms of when you're collecting a book is really pretty important.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, especially with the American books, when you take off the jacket, there's nothing.
Right. And
there's no title or anything. So you need that.
And collectors want the book to be intact, meaning all of the parts there. Including, like, sometimes if you buy a book for a gift, people will price clip it so they don't know what you spent. But the book is no longer considered intact at that point.
Suzanne buys you a gift, and she doesn't want you to know that, she spent $15.99 at Target on you, even though, you could just look up and see how much it was at Target. But she's being
but
really
it's the
kind.
thought that matters.
It's the thought that matters. So I know I'm mentioning this because as a reader of books, and you are as well, when I read hardcover books, I usually take the jacket off because that can rip or tear. And then I have to remember to put it back on. There are a couple books, not Harry Potter books, that I can't find the jacket of, and it bugs me.
Same. And in fact, like my first Harry Potter books, the hardcovers that I bought, I took the jackets off and then they were used as coasters by my family.
Oh.
Yeah. So sad and true story. So those jackets wound up getting thrown away because they had juice rings all over them.
Juice rings? What were you putting on there?
Not me.
Oh.
It was my family. It was, I guess, cups of juice. I don't know.
Oh, all right. Well, there's the unexpected public service announcement. Do not use your books or book jackets as coasters, especially if you are drinking juice.
Right, or really any beverage. That's
sure.
bad.
That makes sense. Okay, so we have our hard and soft cover books down. We got that. So Carly, tell me more about, I hear this word all the time, first edition Harry Potter book. What does that mean to have a first edition of a Harry Potter book, or any book actually, first edition?
Okay, so just a first edition is exactly what it sounds. It is the very first time the book has been published ever in the history of the book. So the first edition Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, was published originally in 1998 by Arthur Levine Scholastic. And it actually is still in print, meaning I can go to Barnes & Noble, Wizarding World, or Target, Walmart, and get a first edition hardcover of this book. It is just a much, much, much later print. And a print is like a batch of copies that they're running together. So like for the first print of the first edition, they had 30 to 35,000 books printed up all at once and then distributed over to shelves at bookstores for sale. So when I say first print or first print run, it means it's that part of that first batch. And then the second print is like the second big batch of books because the books flew off the shelves. They had to continue making more. And now if you go to Barnes & Noble like I did the other day and look to see what print or batch of books are up for sale, it is the 106th print, which most books never make it out of the first or even second prints. So to have a book that's in its 102nd or 106th print 23 years later is a huge deal.
Right. So to recap here, just so I can get my mind through this. So Jimmy John, actually that's probably copyrighted. Billy Joe Publishers makes 30,000 of their first book, and everyone buys them because they're like, wow, this book's amazing. And then they're like, hey, we need to make more of these. So they go back and they print more. And that next group of printings of books, let's say they order another 50,000, that would now be the second printing of that book, correct? Okay.
Correct.
So you can technically have a first edition of a book and have it be a second printing. It's the same book, they're just printing it again.
Right. It's what's called a reprint sometimes. You'll see that on eBay or Abe Books. If you're shopping around, it'll be called a reprint sometimes, or a later print, something like that. Sometimes people misspeak or mistype and they'll say second edition. It's not a second edition. It's a whole different edition of the book.
Right. And it's worth noting here, when we started this off by talking about hardcover books and softcover books, there is a first edition first printing of the hardcover book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. There is also a first edition first printing of the softcover.
But the softcover is not considered a true first edition.
Correct.
Because it came second. As far as editions go, it is considered, you can call it a first edition softcover.
Yes.
But it is not an actual first edition. They came out, I believe, in 1999.
Right. But if you look on the inside, which, if you grew up in the 90s like I did, and you were super into Pokemon cards, and you got your, Charizard, and mind flew out of your head because you're like, whoa, I got a Charizard. And you looked on the front and it had that black circle with the one that said first edition. Pretty easy way to determine that this was a first edition Pokemon card. Now, if you look inside a book, it'll still have the words first edition on there. However, you still have to know more about the book itself.
Right. Because it's like if you're talking back to Harry Potter, we're going to talk about, I guess, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Just because it's a hardcover doesn't mean it's automatically a first edition, because there were book club editions that were produced after the first edition of Sorcerer's Stone was released. These book clubs are Book of the Month clubs, or where you had to be a subscriber and then you bought the book through there instead of at a bookstore. So these books were not open to buy to the open market or open for sale, so there is not a price on the book. They're usually made with lesser quality paper. They don't have the turquoise end papers, and the boards are usually like black. They can be black and maroon. I've seen all red, things like that. And then there's the Junior Library Guild Book Club, which is the only book club that has any real collector value, has the same exact boards as the jacket, so the jacket and boards match.
That's a lot of information.
Yes.
Wow. So now that we know a little bit about some of these terms, let's grab your Sorcerer's Stone book. We're going to hold it in front of us here.
Oh, and you also must be careful, because some book dealers, booksellers, they'll use first edition to mean first print, and they'll use it synonymously.
Oh, got it. So we need to be aware of those people.
Yeah, you have to really know what you're looking at. Yeah.
So let's help some people out here. Let's learn about our books together. So grab your copy, and we're going to do what? How can we figure out do we have a first edition?
Well, first things first, we'll look at the book itself before we get to the copyright page, which will tell us more about print. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the book itself. So Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the first edition has raised gold Harry Potter font on the front cover, as well as at the bottom where it says J.K. Rowling, and on the spine. The first edition, first print jacket, also called the First State because it was the very first jacket to ever accompany this book, has J.K. Rowling on the spine, and there is no year one marker yet because they didn't know if the series would continue yet, so they held off until actually about the mid-20s prints of Sorcerer's Stone, which came out in the 1999.
I'm surprised they let it get to 20 printings before they decided, this is actually a big deal.
It was actually like 25, 24, 26, somewhere in there. I've tried to find out when, but it's a lot of books to go through.
Yeah. So if you're at home, look at the spine of your book. If you're looking at your book one, if there's a number one at the top, you can rule it out right away that it's not a first edition, first print, which don't be sad. This isn't about, do you have a diamond in the rough here? We're just learning more about your book.
Right. And then, fun fact, at the fifth print, the jacket and the spine of the boards itself changed from J.K. Rowling to just Rowling at the top.
Save on ink, right?
Right. So, and then the boards of the book, all first edition boards have to have red spine cloth with purple boards. Those are the only first edition Sorcerer's Stone books. If you have boards that are a different color, you have a book club.
So now that we have kind of our exterior of the book, let's open up to a very informative page that most people, myself included, when I'm actually reading a book, I don't read, because why would you?
Right. There's nothing there that you're going to want to look at if you're reading the book, but there's a lot there that you're going to want to know if you're going to collect the book.
So where do we need to look here?
So the first thing that I do when I'm looking for a collectible book is I always check out what's called the number line. And on the Sorcerer's Stone, or really any of the U.S. Harry Potter books, it is going to be at the bottom of the page above where it says printed in the United States. There are two lines of numbers, one on the left and one on the right. The one on the left is the number line. Sometimes you'll just see like a single number, like 10, and that is still the number line. It means you have a 10th print book.
I like those because it's really easy.
It's easy. If you have the first print, you'll have what we call a 1 through 10 number line, and the 1 is on the far left. And the lowest number in the number line indicates the print that you have. So,
for example, if your number line is like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Right. Then it would be a 7th print.
It's a 7. It's the lowest number of that group.
Right. Or if it's a 61st print, it would be like 65, 64, 63, 62, 61, 61st print.
And I think you've seen the most recent printings. Do you know if the really late ones have the whole line or if it's just the one number?
I was actually just trying to remember. I think the 106th print may have gone up to 108th, but I could be wrong. It's either that or it could be a single. I don't remember.
Well, if you have one with a single, let us know. And by you, I mean you listening right now. Right. In your car or at your workplace.
Or wherever. So that is the number line. And the line on the right is the date line, but it's not in the Bloomsbury Harry Potter books, for example. But the number line, or the date line rather, tells us the date year that the book was printed. So if you have a first print, first edition, it'll have like an 8, and then it'll have like a space and then a 9 dash or 9. And the 8 indicates it was printed in 98. And then if you have like a mid-20s print, let's say, it'll have like 99 because it was printed in 99. What's kind of tricky is the 2000s books. Like if it's printed in 2000, it'll have like 00 and then 001, 02, and it's the 00, it's 2000.
Nice. So I grabbed a book. I have one here, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And I'm going to do some describing to you, and you're going to tell me what I have, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the front of my book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, it's got bumpy Harry Potter shiny gold, and on the inside flap, there's a price. It's $19.95.
Oh, $19.95. That price. Yep. So the price has changed a lot really quick from $16.95 when it was first sold, and now you can buy it for $26.99. That was one of the changes that they made on the dust jacket as the books became more popular, as the price changed.
There you go. So it's looking good here. If I look on the spine, I have year 1 right at the top.
Right. So it's at least a mid-20s print, if not higher.
And it just says Rowling at the top. It does not say J.K. Rowling. Definitely later. If I look at the bottom, it says Arthur A. Levine Books and Scholastic Press. So I know that it's not a book club edition.
Right.
Plus it also has a price. So now I'm going to open up here, not to the first page, not to the second page, but to the third page, where it says For Jessica at the top. And I'm going to go down through all that legal jargon and Library of Congress information, and I see the number line way at the bottom. So on the left, it says 57, 56, 55, 54, 53, 52.
Right, so that's a 50-second print.
It is a 50-second print. It says printed in the USA. And then below that, it says First American Edition, October 1998.
Right, and that just denotes that it's still a part of that edition, even though it's a much later print.
Correct. So I feel like that is the part that people will look up to a book, they'll look all the way to the bottom of that page, and they'll see that it says First American Edition. And they'll go, oh my gosh!
Right, and then they get really excited,
Yes.
And they'll list on eBay for $1,000.
Isn't always wrong. The first editions still say that at the bottom, but you need to look at that number line above that to get more information. And then the numbers on my right, it says 01020304.
Right, so printed in 2001.
There you go. Pretty cool. And I believe, I think the one that I grabbed here, this was my wife's original copy of the book that she read.
Oh, very cool.
So that means she got her book in 2001, her first one.
My actual first book that I read was a softcover first print.
No.
Yeah, and it's just completely torn up. I mean, there's not a lot of value in the first print of the softcover edition. Like, and maybe in Fine, you can find it for $50 or so. But it's still like, oh man, if only I hadn't torn it up. I would love to have it in like better shape.
Yeah, so I have my first one that I read here. I got it from Scholastic Book Orders when I was in 5th grade.
Oh, I loved book orders.
Oh, if you're not from the United States, the book orders were the best. You'd come to school one day and the teacher would pass out this like little magazine with all the books in there, and you'd immediately get out, your big red marker.
I would just immediately start circling everything I wanted, which was so many things.
And that is...
And they're usually cheaper through the Scholastic Book Order than what you'd find on the shelves.
And that is where I think a lot of people my age were exposed to books that were popular or new, because we weren't just going home and surfing the web when we were in 2nd grade in the mid-90s, because that just wasn't a thing. And we didn't have smartphones, whatever. So we got these book orders, and it was like, I don't know, Christmas every month.
It
was. The book order thing
it was magical.
So I got mine in 5th grade. It still has my name and my teacher's name on the inside cover, which is barely hanging on. But I'm curious to see what printing this is. This is a 4th print of the softcover book. It does say at the bottom, First Scholastic Trade Paperback Printing, September 1999.
There you go.
So it doesn't say first edition. It does say that it is a first trade paperback printing. So that language has changed a little bit, but my number line ends in a 4.
Right. So 99, like it says. Very cool. So with value... we're going to talk about value of the first print, first edition Sorcerer's Stone, because all the Harry Potter books. That's the one that has the most. There are, like I said earlier, there's about 30 to 35,000 of those that were printed. Scholastic is kind of vague on the numbers there. And in fine condition with the first date dust jacket, meaning the very first jacket to accompany the books, it's valued at about, $1,500. You can find them for less, but that's in fine condition. I mean, like unread.
And what is fine? What is fine condition? Because I use the word fine at my house to mean like, it's all right.
I know. Like fine condition in bookseller terms is pretty much like brand new, unread. And
that book's fine. Is that what you're saying? Like, whew, that's a fine book.
I'm very picky when I'm grading books, so I usually don't ever say a book is fine. I'll say it's like very good plus. Because typically after 23 years, there's going to have at least a blemish, something weird. If you can find one without, that's a high dollar book, and it can fetch a lot of money.
Right. And even just a book sitting on a shelf, if it's never been read, if it's still brand new, sitting on the shelf at a bookstore can still dent corners.
Well, right, because I've gotten brand new books from Amazon, brand new, unread. They were just warehoused badly, and they're dented. The jackets were torn. It was still brand new, but you can't say it's fine. You can say it's like acceptable, even if it's unread.
You could say it's brand new, but it still has some
right.
of this.
There's still cosmetic issues here. One thing that needs to be covered fairly quickly, though, is what the first date jacket looks like. It looks.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's an important quote on the back of the first date jacket that is only on that jacket, and that is the Guardian quote. It is only on that first date. The second date, they changed it to Publishers Weekly, and the second date jackets were found on pretty much second print on forward.
And the Guardian, for those of you that do not know, is a UK media outlet.
Right.
And the US doesn't have that.
Nope.
But they didn't have anything at the time.
No, that's where they pulled the review for the book, was off the Guardian, and then Publishers Weekly came through, and so starting on the second state jacket forward, we have the Publishers Weekly quote, which is still on the backs of the jackets.
It is, and I don't know why the top part says "a delightful" in really capital letters, award-winning debut.
It just catches your eyes.
Dances in the footsteps of P.I. Travers and Roald Dahl, Publishers Weekly starred review. So, there you have it. Oh, and we should mention, Carly, we've been talking a lot about the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, first edition, first printing, in some cases first state. And there are not very many of them. You said there were about 30 to 35,000 of them, which
is still a huge print run for a brand new book by a brand new author. But comparatively to the other Harry Potter books, there's not very many of them. And in fact, starting with Chamber of Secrets, the very first print run of the first edition, Chamber of Secrets, had approximately 250,000 copies in that first print run batch. So
what this means is after the first book sold like hotcakes, can we say that still?
Yes,
is that
that's
an
a good expression
that most people understand? Sold like hotcakes. Scholastic was like, whoa, we got to print more of these. And for the next one, for book 2, we are starting out right away printing a lot more.
Huge numbers. So the even the first edition Chamber of Secrets is not super rare. I can find like 10 or 12 on eBay without having to look hard. So, I mean, even in fine condition, you're looking, I think I bought one for $45, fine, unread, completely brand new looking. So they're around for not a lot of money. And actually, Deathly Hallows, book 7 of the whole series, there was something like 3 million, don't quote my number, but there were millions of the first edition book that were produced because the pre-order was so big. And most of the first prints went to pre-orders.
Right. So if you're like me, and when the first couple books came out, you were in elementary school or maybe middle school, and by the time book 5, book 6, book 7 came out, you had your driver's license, or your friend did, so one kid that you knew did, and you all liked Harry Potter, and you went to the Barnes & Noble midnight release of a book, it's very likely that everyone in that store is getting a first edition, first print, because they made so many of them, because they knew that so many people were going to buy them.
Right. So when, I was on eBay, tootling through eBay yesterday, and there was a listing for a rare first print, first edition Deathly Hallows for $900. Only you can buy that book for $5 because it's not rare.
Right. And that doesn't mean it does not have intrinsic value to you. I mean, I still have all of the books that I remember getting at either a midnight release or I pre-ordered them and they showed up the day of. And it's still my first copy of that book that I read and enjoyed. And to me, that's priceless, really. I could never sell any of those books.
Same.
And they also just so happen to be a first edition, first print. But that's not why they're valuable to me. And really, unless there's something crazy going on, if you have a signed copy.
Right. Signed copies. We'll talk about signed copies in another show. We're talking about completely unsigned copies as far as value goes.
Right. They're just not valuable books.
No, they're just fun to have. And
they're fun to have.
They're great if you're trying to complete like a first print hardcover Harry Potter US set. You can just snag one for like $5-10, and there you go.
Yep. So there you have it. I think we did a pretty fair job on that.
I agree. But if you have questions, you're welcome to email us at dialoguealleypodcast@gmail.com. If you would like us to look at your books and maybe help you out with value or tell you what print you have or whatever have you, you can email us there. You can also email me at alltheprettybooks1@gmail.com, or you can DM me at alltheprettybooks on Instagram. I don't mind any questions, and we're here to help.
Yeah, and I think Carly knows way more about this than I do. I'm pretty good at deciphering the number line now, but I'm still not an expert on the states or the like. So which is what I love about this community is that everyone has their thing and everyone has their contribution to the community.
Exactly. We all have our own thing. It's great.
So, Carly, are you ready for a big reveal?
I am.
Okay, because it's time for the translation of the show.
Woohoo!
All right, so the translation of the show this week is, I'm sure you're drum rolling right now at your house or your car or on the train and everyone's giving you weird looks. It's Italian. It is the first, not the first edition, first printing, now that we can throw those terms around. It is just the first...
first edition Italian hardcover.
Yeah, first edition Italian hardcover. And this book, if you're looking for something that's gonna turn heads, I mean, this is it. It's got everything. It has everyone's favorite scene in the book right there on the front cover. So it's got Harry sitting at a chessboard next to a rat that's the same size that he is, and the rat's kind of sleeping.
Right.
Harry's looking off into the distance like he's really contemplating his next 5 moves. I mean, everyone's been watching The Queen's Gambit right now, so I'm sure actually this would be catching a lot of people's eye. But Harry's also wearing a hat in the shape of a rat's head. You heard that correctly.
Right.
I mean, I hope it's like a fake hat and not like one of the friends of the rat that he's sitting next to.
Right.
But they're sitting there playing chess.
And we have no idea where this moment came from, actually, because it's not in the book.
It's not in the book at all. I mean, Harry does play chess, but I mean, also now that I'm thinking about it, I like looking at all of these covers every now and then because you see something different. Why would he be sitting? Presumably, he's playing chess against this rat, who's also wearing a blue bandana around its neck, by the way. Why would he be sitting on the same side of the board as your adversary?
I don't know. I was wondering the same thing.
So that leads me to believe that he is not playing against the rat. The rat is there to like cheer him on.
Right. It's his cheerleading squad, maybe?
Or it's his coach and mentor.
I don't know. I would love to know more. And I'll have a picture up. We'll have this up on our Instagram and on my website page for the podcast.
Yeah, excellent. So go look at that. So this book, sorry, I just get the giggles whenever I look at this sometimes. This book was published by Solani, which is the Italian publisher of the Harry Potter book series. And this book, not the one I'm holding, but this translation actually came out in 1998. So only,
1 year after, same year as Sorcerer's Stone. It came out a year after the book was published in UK in 97.
So Italian was one of the early languages to have an official translation of this book, along with French and German and Spanish.
And Danish was in there early too.
Yeah, Danish was in there too. So if you lived in Italy, you probably had your translation pretty quickly. I'm also going to mention that. Sorry, I got lost in thought, staring into the eyes of this rat, boring down into my soul. I'm also going to mention that the Italian language is a officially national language of Italy, Switzerland, Vatican City, and San Marino, according to the internet, so it has to be true. There are 65 million native speakers of Italian in those countries that I just mentioned, but there are 85 million total worldwide speakers of Italian, so a pretty large population of Italian speakers, which explains why Italy was so keen on getting this translated immediately, because they knew they'd have a lot of people there to buy their book.
And the books were really popular. That's, I think, one of the reasons why there's so many different editions with so many different covers.
Yes, and this book is excellent. If you open it up, there's stuff to look at all over. So under the jacket, my book is bright green with Harry sitting on it with a hat that one can only describe as a jester hat that got caught in a stretching machine.
You need to send a photo so I can put it on the website, because mine doesn't have that.
Okay, I will do that. And another thing to mention about these early edition Italian books is that they have art inside the books, not necessarily at the start of every chapter like we're used to seeing in our American books, but they have they have pictures that accompany
depict some of the moments. Yeah. And they're really fun. I need to make a flip through video showing this, because they're really fun, and the illustrations aren't in the later editions, and they're not in the later books even of the series, probably due to ink costing so much when you're printing so many.
And unlike the picture on the front of the book that is a complete mystery, the pictures in the book really do depict what's going on in the story. Like, I don't speak Italian, but I'm looking here, and there's Dumbledore sitting next to McGonagall at the beginning when they're dropping Harry off. And there's Harry riding in the car on the way to the zoo with Dudley and Pierce Polkerson, or whatever his name is. There's Dudley in his Polkus. There's Dudley in his Smell-Things uniform. There's Harry in Dialogue in Diagon Alley. There he is trying on the sword.
Dialogue Alley.
He's listening to our podcast. There's just a ton. There they are going through the portrait hole, and it's really fun just to see how different illustrators at this early stage interpreted those events in the book.
And they're wonderful. They're so whimsical and so much fun.
They are. So I think, we should mention, Carly, how did you get your first Italian book?
I traded. In 2014 was when I decided to finally start collecting translations, and I traded something.
Probably Pokemon cards for it?
I don't do Pokemon cards.
Oh, okay.
I have other things that I collect, but I wouldn't have traded that. I traded, I think it was Peter.
Pogs? Were you trading Pogs?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think I traded other books, but I don't remember what they were. It was other Harry Potter books. I traded for those. It was like I got the Italian, Breton, and like a few others in the trade.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm, I thought so.
I would say Italian is one of my more sentimental books. My parents got it for me when they were in Italy, watching my sister play volleyball on a European volleyball tour.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which I did not go to because I think I was working or something. Well, I had to pay for college, so I think I had to work all summer.
Oh, boring.
So my parents got it for me, and that was really...
yeah, that makes sense.
It was one of the first books that I got. I think I talked about it on the previous show, that Italian was one of the first books I got besides the US or UK art. I got French, German, and Italian, I think from the same trip that they were on. And that really sparked my collection because all of those editions have unique cover art. Yep.
Different cover art, right. And it's wonderful. It's very different from what you see on the US or the UK editions. And we'll talk more about them in other shows.
Yeah. Oh, and one last thing I want to say about just this ridiculous cover. I always wonder why they chose this. And I think about this a lot when I look at the other covers I have, or the ones that you have, just that are different moments. What moment did the illustrator choose to put on the cover of this book to get some kid that picks this up to go, whoa, I have to read that. Like, that looks super cool. I mean, it reminds me of, when you went to Blockbuster and you're picking out like a movie or a video game to rent for the weekend. We didn't really have the internet to review all these things to get a ton of info. You had the cover. You looked at it and you're like, whoa, this game looks amazing. And it actually was terrible. Or you're like, whoa, this movie looks so cool. And it actually was cool.
Right. So, I don't know that if I were a kid back in 1998 Italy that this would have been a book I would have picked up. I don't know. I think I may have been weirded out by the rats.
I would have too. And
personally.
presumably you've probably heard that Harry Potter was a big deal, so it didn't really
Right.
matter. But I would still be wary. If you're like, whoa, all my friends over in England are saying this thing's pretty cool. And I don't know what they're talking about because it looks like a book about chess with cosplaying rat costume people. But I'll give it a try, I guess. So I'd be curious to how many people actually picked this up and gave it a go, regardless of the cover, or people that picked it up and were like, you know what, this doesn't look that cool, actually.
Or picked it up because it does look that cool.
Yeah, or if you're really into rats playing chess, you're like, yeah, this is it. I've been looking for you, book.
This is the one.
This is the one. Putting you down. Now I'm picking this one up. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We would be curious to know if you are one of the people in Italy who bought the first edition. Just let us know what you thought about the book when you saw it on the shelves.
Yeah, very cool. So we have listener mail. Da-da-da-da.
Woohoo!
That's my sound effect for listener mail.
I like
Yeah,
it.
thanks. I just made it up. Actually, I didn't make it up.
Great,
That's a
great,
sound
great
that
job.
everyone does. So
I think I said it earlier, in fact. But anyway, listener
you
mail.
probably did. So listener mail. So we have some questions that we are going to answer this week. If you would like to get in touch with us, or if you have any ideas for the show, or you want to interact with us anyway, you can email us at dialoguealleypodcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a message at Dialogue Alley Podcast on Instagram. So we have a couple questions this week, and the first question is from Marty, and Marty is in Ireland.
Woo!
Woohoo.
Marty's wonderful.
He is wonderful. So he says, Dear Carly and Erik, that's us. I absolutely loved the first episode of your Dialogue Alley podcast and can't wait for more content. Well, here's more content for you, Marty, because we're reading your question. My question is this. When you reread the books, what editions do you read? Do you have them in paperback? Do you have a set that you set aside as reading copies? Do you reread your original copies, or do you pick a copy at random? I have become so protective of my own copies that I reread the books on Kindle or have Stephen Fry read them to me via Audible. And what that means is Stephen Fry did the UK audiobooks as opposed to Jim Dale, who did them for the United States. Again, great job on the first episode, and here's to many more. Your friend in Ireland, Marty. Well, Marty, we have an answer for you.
We do. So, Erik, do you want to answer first?
Sure. So when I reread the books, I typically don't read them in like tangible book form. I listen to the audiobooks. That is just when I have the most time. So I listen to the Jim Dale audiobooks. I'm actually listening to one right now. In fact, that is something
Nice.
that I'm currently reading. Listening to book 6, Half-Blood Prince, again for like the 50th
Good
time.
one. Yes.
So if I have to actually pick up a book and look at it, I will most likely reach for one that I have read before. So any of my original hardcover books that I read for the first time, because they've been read, so the spine's been bent already, the pages are worn, and I will quickly flip through them.
Right, you're not doing more damage.
Right. So that's, if I ever have to read them physically or look something up that I want to just reference, I will use a book that I've already read. There are books that I haven't already read that I don't want to read because I want them to stay in really nice shape. So, I mean, I'll page through them very carefully, but I will not like prop them open on a pillow with my, bag of pretzels and lemonade because I don't want them to get dirty. So
Right.
that's how I reread them. I don't know. How about you, Carly?
I mostly listen to them on Audible just simply because of time. Anymore, when I sit down to read books, it really needs to be audiobooks because I drive so much in my car. And when I sit down at home to read a book, I generally fall asleep because I work all the time. I own my own business, and my hours are sometimes, 15, 16, 17 hours a day. Plus, I do other things. So audiobooks are really the only way I can do things right now.
Perfect. And I think, honestly, there's a heated debate going on about Stephen Fry and Jim Dale. They're both excellent. So if you've never read the Harry Potter books, or not read, if you've never listened to the Harry Potter audiobooks, highly recommend doing that. They're fantastic. And if you don't want to spend money on Audible or purchasing them, your local library should have them.
Right. I believe they do.
They should. That's where I remember listening to not the Harry Potter books, but some other Dan Brown books that I wanted to listen to on audiobook. and they have just a gigantic selection of them. So go check those out at your library.
Very cool.
Yeah, and we have another question. This question is from Michael in Minneapolis.
Hello, Michael in Minneapolis.
Hello. And Michael would like to know, are there any moments in all your translated Harry Potter books with awkward or funny translations? Any that didn't just work?
Yes, there are, because sometimes these books were being translated as the books were being published. So there was a lot of room for error. The one that comes to my mind first is the mainland Chinese first edition translation of the Harry Potter, the Philosopher's Stone, because Harry Potter was translated as living in a bull cabinet instead of a cabinet under the stairs. So that was fixed in a later, I guess they went through and they corrected that in a later edition, but it took a while. There's actually a whole website dedicated to translation issues with that particular Chinese edition.
Which I think, do you have the link to that?
I'll find it and put it on my website page.
It's definitely worth a giggle if you can go check that out, because there are just some awkward.
And then there's the Vietnamese
awkward translations.
The Vietnamese Order of the Phoenix. They first translated the title as somebody buying like phoenixes. Like, I would like 5 phoenixes, please.
Oh, like placing an order at ordering at the drive-thru.
Exactly. Yeah. So that had to go and be fixed.
Which they should fix it.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then we had other issues are not necessarily issues, but other instances where they translated names and places and houses. Like, for example, in French, Hogwarts is Poudlard.
Oh, oui.
Yeah.
Très bien.
I agree.
Je m'appelle Erik. I think that's an interesting point, especially when I can't think of a specific example of this, but as the books evolved and there was a realization that a name or place was not necessarily a pun, but maybe an anagram or used in a different way, that they had to come up with a creative solution to fix that. So, for example, I'm thinking of...
Right. Or like the anagram in the French for Voldemort.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of in Chamber of Secrets. So Lord Voldemort, the name came out in book 1, but in Chamber of Secrets, spoiler alert, which you probably should have read the book or watched the movie if you're listening to this. If not, you should watch it right now or go read it right now.
Yeah,
if not, we're sorry. Spoiler alert. He translates, or he rearranges the letter in his name, Tom Marvolo Riddle, to spell I am Lord Voldemort. So you're like, it's him. And then I can picture him like sitting in class one day, like pushing his letters around and be like, I can make a word. That's how he figured out Voldemort. It wasn't because it sounded cool. It's because that's what the letters in his name spelled when he rearranged them.
Right. But in the French, his name is like Elvis instead of Marvolo.
Yes, because they needed it to match whatever the French equivalent would be to spell that. Right.
So they had to change the whole middle name.
Which, if you're going to pick a middle name, I mean,
Elvis is pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome. You know, he picked his name, so
right.
He didn't get to pick Elvis. But that's, Tom after my father, Elvis after my grandfather. Wouldn't that have been a good quote?
Right.
In the books. Lastly, one that I can think of off the top of my head, and I grabbed it just so I could go through some of these, is the Norwegian translation of Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
The Norwegian translator actually picked names for people in the book that are from Norwegian folklore. So when they're trying to say, like, Snape is like a dark, menacing, not super nice dude, I think they name him like Snurber. I can't find it. But I know Professor McGonagall is Professor McSnurp. So they actually translated the name of the Weasley family completely different. So the Weasley family in Norwegian is the Wilterson family. So, you have your Wilterson family members like Ronnie and, his twin brothers Fred and Frank. And, that's
so cool.
Just a tad different. They kept Harry Potter the same.
Good job.
Which is good. But everyone else is just different. Oh, Professor Quirrell, I'll find that one really quick. Professor Quirrell is good. He is Kringle. Krengle, which I believe is I think that's like a Norwegian folk kind of trollish dude. So you kind of got the hint from some of these characters that like, ooh, you're up to no good because of your name.
Right.
But I know that J.K. Rowling was not super jazzed about all of those changes being made. But she didn't really have a ton of say.
Not at the time, no.
Not at the time. She was just an author trying to get her book published. So she kind of said yes to anything. Even Krengle and the Wilterson family, which is a little bit different.
Yes.
So there you have it.
Awesome.
Those are some of the funny, awkward translation moments that we can think of off the top of your head. If you are a speaker of another language and you have read both the English and the version in your native language, let us know because I'd love to hear some more awkward translations.
Yes, please email us at dialoguealleypodcast@gmail.com because I, who has studied language quite a bit, would be very intrigued.
Yes, and I've even heard from a lot of my native Spanish-speaking friends, these books are hard to read translated, even for native speakers, because there are so many made-up words and all the magical mumbo-jumbo that they say. It's not necessarily
I know it gave the translators a hard
do.
time, yeah.
Yeah. So we give the translators 2 thumbs up.
And that's part of the reason why sometimes, like for the 20th anniversary, they'll reproduce the books and they'll clean up the text block and kind of correct some of the original issues that happened in the translation process.
Which I think everyone appreciates.
I agree.
Yeah. So before we go, Carly, do you have any updates on what you're currently reading? Anything that you're doing right now?
I'm still rereading The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, magical book. I don't know what I'll read after that, but it'll be a good one.
Nice. And I'm still, I think I just mentioned this before, but I'm going through Half-Blood Prince, Jim Dale version.
Very good answer.
On the audiobook. And I kind of always have something. I have one of the 7 books going all the time on audiobook. It's very comfort food for your brain.
Exactly. Sometimes I'll go to sleep to them.
Yes. Oh, I do that almost every night.
Oh, very good.
Now
very
everyone
good.
knows. Everyone knows my secret now.
So you're probably a whiz at Harry Potter trivia.
I am actually.
Cool. I'd love to see you and Harrison, who's another collector friend of ours, he knows the books by heart. I would love to see you two go at it on trivia sometime. We may have to do that on the show at one point.
We should. That'd be funny. And
it would be. Oh, we're gonna do that. Harrison will be game.
That would be fun. You should message him about that. There are still details that are like, what color shirt was Dean Thomas wearing in the Chamber of Secrets when Ginny spilled her?
Oh, I know, and that'd be just the stuff
her
Harrison
ham at breakfast.
Too.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's those little details that get you.
That was actually another tangent, but when I read Catcher in the Rye for high school, one of the questions, we had these daily quizzes on the chapters to make sure that you read them, and one of the questions on one of the chapters was like, so-and-so, when he got on the train, was wearing what color hooded sweatshirt? And I'm like, what? I mean, I read the chapter, but I don't remember the color of his hooded sweatshirt, nor was it like, there was no imagery or symbolism of the color of his sweatshirt, or maybe there was. It was just so deep that it went right over everyone's head. But I'm like, this is not a question that you ask about, did you comprehend the chapter?
No, it is not about chapter comprehension. It's about detail, paying attention to at that point.
Yes. So, with that being said, we thank you so much for listening to episode 2 of Dialogue Alley. Again, if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can contact Carly and find her on...
You can find me on Instagram at All the Pretty Books. You can find me at Twitter at All Pretty Books, YouTube All the Pretty Books, and my website, alltheprettybooks.net, and alltheprettybooks1@gmail.com.
Nice. And I am Erik with a K. You can find me on Instagram at Nocturne Erik, knock like on a door, or Nocturne Alley if you've read that far into the books. So, remember, you can find Dialogue Alley Podcast on Apple, Google, and all your other favorite podcast hosting locations. You can also find us on Instagram at Dialogue Alley Podcast. And again, here's where you can find pictures of things that we have talked about today, as in previous shows, as well as news, updates, and all other things related to the Dialogue Alley Podcast. So with that, we will walk back through the archway into our daily lives and continue on. Thank you so much for listening, and we will hopefully talk to you very soon.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye.